Hello, howdy, and welcome. I'm Kathryn, and I'm the Aerogarden Homesteader. I'm doing the last push for my winter garden, and I'm going to be getting some onion going, some more kale, some spinach greens, bok choy, and cumin. This is just the first batch of seeds I'm getting going today. But I really want to go through and kind of finish off the last of the seeds for this winter garden. This way, once all the seeds start sprouting, they'll hopefully all start coming mature at the same time-ish. I obviously don't need them all to come at the exact same time. A little bit of staggering is fine. And I am actually staggering a few of the seeds so that they're not hopefully all maturing at once. So I'm going to get some more onion going so I can fill up the last of the spaces in the Aerogarden back there. Got to get some plastic cups. So, like I did the first time I did onion, I'm going to try to put in about 4 or 5 seeds. I don't want to do more than 5 because then it does actually start getting a little overcrowded. They do get big. So I do want to give them some space. I didn't quite get enough. Now I also did start a few more seeds on paper towel. So I was having trouble with the... forgot which one I was having trouble with. I was having trouble with the spinach. So I actually just started some on paper towel, and they did a lot better on paper towel. So my suggestion is if you're having trouble getting them to sprout in the sponge, just start them on paper towel. Does that seem to do the trick? Okay, so my kale was doing quite nice, so I'm going to get some kale going, more kale actually, and put that in a harvest. Oh, we just lost a seed. I'm going to get 4 of them going because they get pretty big. I don't want them to get too big, and I think a harvest will be able to handle them a little bit better. But if I don't keep an eye on them and keep them small, I do get the feeling that they will get ahead of me. Just lost the seeds. There's another one. Got one more. Okay, there we go. So I'm just seeding these directly in harvests at this point. So I'm seeding these directly in harvest because I felt like I got pretty decent germination on them. And I would like to free up my sprout for some other things. Now, mustard, I don't know how well that goes. I'm going to try 1 per pod. We'll see. If that doesn't work, then we'll probably just increase it and see what happens. There you go, 1 per. Some more baskets. Drop those in a harvest. I will cover them up with some of the little humidity domes and get them going. And that is the next harvest. And if you notice, I'm planting them on the outside to give them a little bit more room. Okay, I'm going to do some bok choy next. I've had some really good success with this. So, and again, I'm just going to put 1 seed per, because these do kind of get a little bit big if you're not careful. And I will again be doing these as a sort of harvest as you go. So as they grow to a certain size, I will just sort of harvest the bottom leaves. That's what I mean. Alright, there we go. 1 seed per. I just had a seed escape. Goes that one. There we go. Some more baskets. again, putting those on the outside because they will grow a little bit bushy. So, okay, before I get to the cumin, which I'm actually going to put in this one, I'm going to take the seedlings out of this one so that I can put the cumin, you know, the actual grow deck in, not the seed starting deck. So I have a tomato plant that I had started on the paper towel because it seemed like I was having a little trouble with them. And this one is also a pepper plant that I started on the paper towel because, again, it seemed like I was having a little trouble with them too. My seeds were a little old for those, to be fair, so they were probably just a little slow. Okay, so I've got some baskets. Just do what we always do, make a mess. I'm gonna get the spinach out first. So these spinach that actually started growing are the ones that I started on paper towel and put in the sponge later. So I'm gonna get those out. So this one did actually start. It just hasn't lost its seed coat and popped up yet. But it's there. Same with this one. I got this one going. It's got a little bit of a root going on it. Finally, this last one, I only had 3 of the 4 seeds germinate, so this one does not have an active seed in it that I know of. But I did have another one on the paper towel start sprouting. So I'm just going to grab that little one and we'll give it a little try and see, you know, how big does it have to be before it goes in the sponge. So this one's got a tiny little root on it. Let's see if we can get that root facing in the right direction. There we go. Another basket, and away we go. So that is our spinach. It is going again on the outsides of a harvest. That leaves my tomato and pepper, which I will need to get a bounty going for each of those. But in the meantime, I think I will just chuck them in here with the broccoli just so that they are in water. And then I can swap out the dirty water from the seed starting and get my cumin going. There we go. That can now go out of the way. Put this in temporarily while I get my seeds going. And since the cumin did well with a few in there, I'll make sure to put like at least 3 in, I think. I think they did well with 3. Don't know if I would want to go too much more than that, just because they are a little on the fuzzy side. I don't know how best to describe that. They're like a fuzzy plant, fluffy. There you go. Get that going. Oops, missed the hole there. So if you don't have any Aerogardens and you want to follow along with some of this, it's perfectly acceptable to do these in pots with dirt. Some of these, like cumin, can handle a smaller pot, while the tomatoes and peppers would need a bigger pot. Now obviously you wouldn't be able to do quite so many, but if you've got a nice sunny location that you can put a couple of pots, you know, on the floor or on a windowsill, that would work great. There we go. So that's my cumin. And now moving on to the tomatoes. So obviously I have this one here, which is a Roma that I will put in a bounty. I also have, I tried sprouting another Roma on the paper towel and I didn't really have any success, but I did start an Amish paste. I don't know if you can see that. I got just a tiny little sprout going on. So I'm going to put that in a sponge, which I will have to make wet. Let's just take advantage of their mess from earlier. I'm going to get that in there and get that in the bounty as well. Now this one I will definitely put a little humidity dome on it. The other one is actually big enough it won't need it at this point. There we go. And there we go. It is in a bounty. And as you can see, I've got them separated fairly decently far apart, but also so that I can take advantage of putting in a trellis to help keep them slightly contained. And now I'm going to move on to the pepper plant. So I do have this one here that I will drop into. I actually have an old one called a garden. So it only has 7 slots instead of the 9 that would be in a bounty. But that works perfectly for putting in just a few plants that you still need a large space for. Now, for the other peppers, I started some, they're called jalapenos. And so I'm going to put those in a sponge as well and get those going in. So they've already started sprouting. So hopefully this will just keep the process going. I'll put those in the other slots. So I had 2 of them. So this one is just barely starting. So hopefully it will continue sprouting. If not, I do have another pepper seed that I started, and if this one doesn't quite make it, I will just switch over to the other one. So we're also going to just put that in there and then get a basket for that. And then get that in there. So this is a garden. Now the reason why I switched over to a garden is because I've only got 1 bounty left and I want to do beans and I need the trellis for the beans. This one, the pepper plants stay relatively small and I can kind of prune them. So they're okay if they don't have a really good trellis. This, I think I've got 1 layer of trellis. So it'll work out for that. For the next set, I am going to get some lettuce going. And for this, I decided to try something a little different. I actually sprouted a bunch of lettuce seeds on paper towel because I wanted to see what would happen. I also was hoping that by doing this, I would have better germination rate, or at least I'd be able to see which ones are germinating, because I did kind of have a little problem with some of the seeds last time. And I did get some more cilantro going. So we'll see how that goes. But I've got some black-seeded Simpson here. So I'm going to, all the ones that have sprouted, I'm going to put them in a sponge. That way I know that I'm getting 1 per. Because there's nothing more annoying than having them grow like 3 or 4 in a sponge and then you have to cull them and like you don't know which one to cull. But if you don't cull them, then I find that they get a little on the like thin side. They struggle. Okay, so I'm just kind of ripping a little down the side and I'm just putting the sprouted seeds in. So these next ones are a bronze romaine. So we'll give that a try. So I think I had quite a good germination here. I might actually be putting most of these in today. Trying to not put the seeds in upside down. This one decided to turn. Yeah, it actually looks like I had all of these germinate. Might have to get another harvest ready to go. I think I got a little bit more lettuce than I thought I was going to get. I guess we'll see. Okay, well that was all of the bronze romaine. And it's all going in one harvest together. And I do have some... So this is green salad bowl. This is red salad bowl. I can't remember what this one was. This was Grand Rapids, I think. So I got 4 more. I do. I think I got 2 red salad bowls that I will put in. And then I'll probably put in some of the Green Rapids. And then we'll just have to hold off and see what the rest of the seeds do. Maybe I will just have to start up another harvest with more lettuce. It's a good thing I love salad. Okay, so these ones are going to be the Grand Rapids. And they will go in with the black-seeded Simpson. Oops, that's got a little piece of stick in it. And again, I'm just trying to keep those roots kind of pointing in the downward direction, which this one's not agreeing with. There we go. Okay, and that's that. I have 2 harvests full of lettuce right now. We'll see how those grow. And last but not least, so I will obviously save the cilantro for later. I will just put those in at some point and then I'll just start adding them to the updates. But I have beans. So these will go into a bounty. And I will obviously have to split the pods for those. I started 6 and I think all but 1. So this one has not sprouted yet and I don't know if it will, but I will leave it in the paper towel a little bit longer and see if it does. But this one's got just the beginnings of a sprout coming on. And I think all of the other ones have some going on. So I will get at least the 5 of the 6 going. And I will get them in a bounty. And if that other one does sprout, I will add that to the bounty as well. So let's get these split and in some water. again, I'm going to make sure I put the root down, and I don't want the whole bean buried in the pod because I do want to make sure that it gets a little bit of air. They do sometimes rot out, so as you can see, it's a little bit above. We'll just go through and do that for all of them. I'm going to make sure that the sprout part is on the opening, just so it gets a little bit extra space to run out. There we go. So this pretty much wraps up most of the major planting for my winter garden. I do hope you have been following along and joining in with me on this. I feel like the rest of the videos after this will be minor planting, so I really don't need to bring you along for too much of that since you've really seen how this is going, but we'll have some planting as I update things or have to change things around. So the cilantro will obviously, I'll have to add to that. But other things, you know, as long as they keep going, they'll keep going. So I'll be showing at that point what to do with the harvest. And I'll also be giving updates on how the various Aerogardens have been doing. So I will keep this going. I do have, they're really hard to see because they were really small seeds. Let me see if I can get you a little closer, but those are ground cherries. So we'll give those a try and see what happens. I only plan on planting one in an Aerogarden because anything more than that, and it's just going to, it'll just get out of hand. Those plants can get pretty big. So that covers it. So these are the beans. Like I said, if the other one does grow, I will put it in this spot, and then I do have room to put the trellis around it. I'll have little humidity domes on here to help them. But if I notice any rotting of the beans, I will take the humidity dome off because it might be too humid for them if I do that. So after this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to give updates on all the current Aerogardens so you can see where everything is at. So hopefully you'll be as impressed as I am with some of how some of these are growing. And now for the updates. So this is the celery. It's doing great. As you can see, they look like celeries. This is the cabbage. So it's looking pretty good. We haven't quite gotten any curly little heads forming yet. So we'll see how that goes. Sweet potato is still sprouting. Now this is the one that had a combination of things in it. So it's got some celery. I just started some new onions in here. So these are all bunching onions. And this one here is a leek. So we'll see how that goes. I can actually see that the leaves are starting to flatten a little. I don't know if you can see that. And these are the broccoli. This is how it's doing. So I'll try to put an infographic up as I'm going through or later on. But for each of these, I have a tag on it now, so not only do I know what it is, but I know what cycle it's on. So if it's on a cycle for A, so I'll clean all of the A's in 1 week. Cycle 2, week A will get cleaned. Cycle 2, week B will just get fed, that sort of thing. So hopefully it'll help keep things straight. And I will put an infographic up to show where I am, like where everything ended up on the cycle. Obviously the things that I just put in today will not be assigned to a cycle, but as they start growing and once I start feeding them, I'll assign them to a cycle, so I'll know which ones need to be fed which week, which ones I can ignore, which ones need to be cleaned, and that'll help hopefully streamline things a little bit. And also for you guys, I'm hoping it'll give you an idea of what I planted and how everything is going, because then you can follow it along a little bit easier. This is the cumin, and it has gotten quite big. I've actually had to lift the light a little bit. And I don't know if you can see, but it is just starting to form some flower heads. They're just hiding in this little grassy stuff. And I don't know why, but the one in the back is kind of a little, I don't know, it's a little floppy. So we'll have to see. I don't know if that's a problem or if it's where it's growing because it is close to the pump. It does look like it's also growing on the edge of the sponge, so I don't know if that's causing problems with its support. First set of Roma tomatoes that I planted. So obviously one of them struggled a little bit because it was a little behind. So it's catching up, but it'll still take a little while. And this one is doing great. It's getting better. It's getting nice and big. Pepper plants. You can see that they're doing quite well as well. Although the little one, that one's because it was a little further behind. I had to start that one over again, I believe. And then the peas are doing awesome, although this one keeps flopping over, so I've had to put it on the other side of the trellis. So hopefully it'll stop flopping over, because I'd like to have that on the inside of the trellis and not the outside. These are the cucumber plants, and holy cow, I cannot believe how big these leaves are getting. Like, they are just insane. They are like bigger than my hand. And then the kale has been doing awesome. I did harvest 2 of the bottom leaves, but they're quickly growing fast. So that's an odd way to phrase it, but. And then these are the leeks. They're doing really well. Now I am going to have to keep an eye on this one because there are 2 in here, and I don't want them to crowd each other out. Although this one is it's a little small. I think it was a little bit behind. They are doing awesome. I've had to raise the hood a couple of times now. I will probably have to raise it again because they're already reaching for the top. Here, the parsley is doing wonderful. The basil is just starting to peek out from its little pods. So I did take the humidity covers off so that they can start growing a little bit faster, hopefully. The lettuce is not doing quite so good. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if maybe I overfed it. I do have a problem with lettuce. When it gets overfed, I get these like burnt spots on them. So we'll have to see. Maybe I just won't feed it this next time. Though the red one is doing great, but there's just not enough to harvest at this point because they seem like they're struggling. And the cumin, sorry, that is not cumin. The cilantro is doing amazing. I have been like really hacking it back, and I'm just not able to keep up with it. I will probably, once the other seeds start growing, I will probably mow this down and dry some of it up so I have it for later use. Because we don't always have the Aerogardens going up over the summer because we have a summer garden. And sometimes we're just not here. So it's hard to take care of them when we're not here. So I'll mow these down and then I can just use the dehydrated stuff over the summer. Well, I hope you are following along. I hope you've been growing with me and learning along with me as well. I will have that infographic up somewhere in the video to show you what cycle things are on. This current week is cycle 2B. So cycle 2B will be fed, which means anything on cycle 2A has to get cleaned. So I will be cleaning the lettuce this week, and hopefully that will clear out the whatever food is in there. And then I'll just try to either scale it back or maybe not give it any at all and see what happens. We'll see. It's a learning experience. Lettuce can be a bit of a hard one there. I've had nothing but problems ever since my second batch of celery. Why do I keep calling it celery? Ever since my second batch of lettuce, I've had nothing but problems with it. So we will work this out together, I am sure. If you have any suggestions, leave them below in the comments. I have been giving them a quarter strength feeding, so maybe this time I'll just skip the feeding and see what happens. To like, share, and subscribe if you've been following along and enjoying these videos. If you do find them helpful, liking and sharing will help other people find them. Well, hopefully you've been growing along with me, and I will see you next time. Happy Aerogardening!